Hi, and welcome to the CATESL workshop for the online teaching interest group. My name is Ingrid Greenberg, and I am the coordinator for this year for the interest group. And Katrina, do you want to say hello?
Hi, my name is Katrina Tamura, and I'm the assistant coordinator. I teach at Maricosta College in Palomar, teaching low intermediate ESL.
Great. Well, we're really excited to be offering this training today because let me see, how do I click to go forward? There we go. Because the topic is equity-minded readings for our ESL learners beginning through advanced. We're going to be sharing with you ways that we've been using multicultural materials, text, books, poems, and other readings for our ESL learners. We're going to be sharing with you some lessons as well. So we're really excited to be doing that. So I'm going to focus on what I would call low cost, because we know some of our teachers, faculty, whether you're in higher ed or K-12, we know some of you can ask your learners to purchase materials, or your districts will purchase materials. So I'll be looking at low cost materials, and then Katrina will look at the free materials. Okay, Katrina, did you want to add anything to our agenda or introductions?
No, but I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from what you have to share with us today. I'm excited to hear it.
Yes, likewise. I'm excited to hear more about your free sources. Awesome. So here we go. Before we get into the content, we have our plug, our announcement. Here we are, March 12th. We meet the second Friday from 12:30 to 1:30 for our online teaching interest group meetings. Normally, we do presentations of some sort, and then we have discussion around the presentation, because we know so many teachers are just eager to get their hands on online ESL lessons. So we've been orienting our meetings, our monthly meetings, towards those trainings and workshops. April 9th, we're going to be covering internet resources for the online ESL class, and May 14th, we'll be covering publisher resources for online ESL. All right, so this is the beginning of the materials and the contents. Here we go. And if you would like to post questions in the chat, Katrina will watch that and help me out. So feel free to post in the chat any comments or questions. So a few years ago, I was looking for some equity-minded books, and I went to the local library, and the librarian was a really big help. They helped me find some materials, and I let them know that I taught English as a second language, and some of my students had low literacy backgrounds, and they had only completed through middle school education. And so they recommended the Young Readers edition of Hidden Figures. I didn't know it existed. I was familiar with the movie. I had read the book, but they pointed out, the librarian pointed out, that there was what they call a Young Readers edition. And both of the full version and the young reader version is written by Margot Lee Shetterly. And I find both versions to be excellent, but for our ESL learners, the young readers edition is more accessible. You know, it just simpler sentence syntax, and some changes in vocabulary are super helpful. So be sure to check out for kind of a young readers edition going forward whenever you find an interesting book that you might want to teach to your students. All right. So by the way, this is the author, Margot Lee Shetterly. And then the other series that is newly published in the last year or so is called A New Readers Edition. So a series of biographies have recently been published, And Harriet Tubman is one of those books. And I'm going to just go out now to Amazon really quickly. I'm going to switch tabs. So you can see here, I'm at my Amazon account. And down here in the bottom, I'll just use my annotation tool really fast. Down here on the lower left, you see some books there, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King Jr., and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So this series now highlights and features civil rights activists, social justice leaders, and I highly recommend you look at these materials because being a new reader's text, they are much more accessible to our ESL learners than the full bridged edition or the New York Times seller editions. So any comments or questions so far? I know I kind of just dove right in there, and I just wanted to get us going with like how to find these materials. These are relatively new additions here. All right. Okay. Jennifer says she loves this. Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate that comment. Okay. So now let's get into the heavy lifting of lesson plans for teaching reading and adapting reading materials for our ESL learners. And I'm going to be sharing with you a few ways that I like to use multimedia materials to help my students engage with social justice, civil rights, American history, and other topics around equity. So I found some video clips here. One reason I was attracted to the story of Hidden Figures is a lot of popular movies already have movie trailers and movie clips. And
y'all gonna end up unemployed riding around in this pile of junk.
You're welcome to walk the 16 miles.
Awesome. All right, so I'm not going to play the whole movie trailer, but you can see this is a clip taken directly from the movie, and there's some a kind of a strong American accent going on there, and that's a lesson in itself. Okay, the type of language and accent, American accents, so that's really interesting. And the movie clips help students get into the material. So whenever possible, look for a movie clip, some kind of a movie trailer from the internet. So now I'm going to be showing you a couple of the lessons I've developed to help students get into the material and enjoy it. So I like to start with the back cover and the front cover of every textbook. And, there's always some really interesting highlights on a back cover of a book. And I ask here, what was the job or goal of the 4 African-American women who worked at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics? And what were the names of these 4 women? And then in the prologue, I ask, where did the author grow up? And how was she a part of the NASA family? And then being an ESL class, let's do vocabulary. So one of the first words to talk about in this story is segregation. So we look at the definition here, and then their job is in the book to find a sentence with the word segregation, type the sentence here, and then to understand the history of the United States, we really need to understand the geographic location of the United States. So I ask learners to review a map here, and you can see the United States are divided into different regions. And based on that, I ask them to list the states in the different regions that the textbook takes place in. So I just covered a lot of information regarding the first lesson and handout. Any comments or questions so far? And you can unmute yourself. Feel free to ask a question. All right. Okay, pretty straightforward. Everyone's got it. That's cool. All right, so that's one way. I highly recommend that you always ask students about the cover, front cover, back cover, and to read the prologue. Now I'm going to share with you kind of from a multicultural perspective. This is one of my assignments, reading lessons. And here we are, we're in the Hidden Figures. The students have read chapters 7 and 8. And I asked them to study the information, photos, and videos about these topics. The Tuskegee Airmen, Mustangs, meaning the horses, and also the name of the planes, and Langley as an institution. So I have them watch a video about Tuskegee Airmen and what did you learn about them? Which airplane did the airmen fly? Watch a video about the Mustang horse in the United States and what are 4 characteristics about the Mustang horse. So I have a video there. So you can see my questions start out kind of who, what, where, when questions. And then I transition to kind of cross-cultural questions. In your country, is there a celebrated animal similar to the Mustang? If yes, what kind of an animal? And what are the characteristics? I have to tell you, I learned so much about my students and their cultures and the countries they come from. And my students in this discussion, they learned so much from each other because they were able to talk about different animals from their cultures and the climates. So this question 6 prompted a really robust discussion, cross-cultural discussion. Question 7, study the photos and watch a video about Langley. And here's some vocabulary. The author writes a secret weapon hidden in plain sight. And then I ask a question, what is a secret weapon? And what does in plain sight mean? So we really parse out the vocabulary, the idioms that the authors write about. And so it's really important to get into the vocabulary. Then at one point, the author on page 51 talks about crack junior engineers. And, what does this word crack mean? What's the idiom in this case? So we got into a discussion about that. So I just wanted to share with you that when I do my questions, of course, I read the text first, then I parse out the page numbers that will reveal interesting topics around cultural and vocabulary and idioms. And it's a really great way for students to learn the idiom and phrases in the context of this story. Now, I want to just share with you a little bit of history with this book. I have used this textbook, Hidden Figures, the Young Readers Edition, several times. And my students tell me it's one of their favorite books that they have ever read about American history and culture. So if you haven't read the book, I know most of us have seen the movie, but I highly recommend you check out this book, and it can work in a high intermediate and advanced course. And my students were telling me they learned more about American culture by reading this book than any other kind of lecture or class I've ever attended, because it really takes a deep dive into the topics of Jim Crow, segregation, and the historical era between the 1940s, really the World War II, and up to the common contemporary times. So just a really wealth of topics here for this. So any comments, questions, or observations so far?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
This is Zena. The correct pronunciation of the airman is Tuskegee.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you say that one more time?
Tuskegee.
Tuskegee. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Any other comments, questions? Is this helpful? Copy that. Cool.
Yes, it's helpful.
Very helpful.
Very good. All right. Well, that wraps up my presentation of low-cost materials. By the way, on Amazon, when I ask students to buy Hidden Figures, the Young Readers Edition, some of my students were buying it for as little as a few dollars, like $3. And so sometimes Amazon will have these books used available for under $5. So when I say low cost, under $5, that's what we're looking for. And then every once in a while, our ESL program has funding and they'll buy class sets of materials. So sometimes I'll ask for a class set, but you know what? Now that I think about it, that doesn't really work so much fully online. But when we're on campus, we would do that sometimes. Yeah, Daniel says he really likes the idea of using movie trailers to help situate and illustrate the materials. Yeah, yes. Daniel, you're so correct. The one thing I will say, the one thing about American movies, actors speak very quickly. So you want to make sure you find a movie trailer with closed captioning. And I'm noticing I grabbed this movie trailer very fast and there's no closed captioning here. So I would not use this one in a classroom setting. And, I might spend a whole class parsing out the closed captioning and transcription of one movie trailer. And this one's not even 2.5 minutes, but that's something to keep in mind. American actors, we just talk so fast, and our students will need a lot of scaffolding and support with that movie trailer. Sometimes I'll even do like a closed reading where I'll have the transcript, but I'll remove every 10th word and they have to listen to the video and then fill in the blanks. And that is another way you can do the movie trailers. All right. I'm going to stop sharing really fast and I'll give people a chance. If you want, you can ask questions right now. And Katrina, this is a good time. Now you could start sharing the slides for your half of the presentation. And Katrina, you are on mute, just to let you know.
Of course I am, of course. Yes, that's one of my favorite things about online teaching is the whole being muted and talking.
I think that phrase is recognized as one of the leading phrases in 2020.
Oh yeah.
You're on mute.
Oh, okay. Well, I am an adjunct teacher. I feel like,
Katrina, real quick, you are sharing, we see your, it looks like Google Chrome, but we see your email, not the
you
slide.
see my email? Great.
Yeah.
Anybody want to read my emails?
There we go. Thank you.
Anyways, I'm an adjunct teacher. I don't know how many of you are part-time. All right, give me a hands up or a thumbs up or something. Okay, we have just maybe 1 or 2 adjunct teachers part-time. Okay, so a lot of times we don't have for some reason we don't get the access, or we don't know about like programs, reading programs that we can just like add to our Canvas courses, and or we don't know the steps to working with a librarian, or it's too late, it's too far into the term, especially in this environment where we were just all kind of hit with like a ton of bricks with like, okay, come up with reading materials. We have no books for you. We have no materials that we can share with you. And so it was really kind of hard to come up with things for students to read in this online environment. I wanted to be able to, I didn't want to stop doing short readings with my students just because I would have to spend hours writing them myself in order to do that. I wanted them to be quality materials. So I looked to the OER Commons, which is a free digital library, and it's contributed by educators around the world. You can contribute if you have something that you write that's quality, and you would like to share it. Please post it, because there are so few materials, free materials for ESL. But this OER Commons does have some, and each contribution has a Creative Commons license. So a lot of times people contribute it, and you can just take it and you can change it and you can modify it and make it for your students, your student group. So they have, they can, if it's at an intermediate level and you have beginning level students, you can change it so it's appropriate for them. But you don't have to start from scratch, right? Because we all know we can't write, a textbook in a short amount of time. We need some help, and OER is helping other teachers, helping teachers to do that, to come up with materials that can be modified so that their students can access reading materials. So, and there's a wide range of formats. There's PDFs, there's websites, there's slides, Canvas courses, Canvas modules that you can just take. They're offering it to you so you can use it with your students. So I want to show you that. We're going to go into the OER Commons. Does everybody know about this? Give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with OER. Nobody? Okay, great. This means open educational resource. Okay, open educational resource. And what are you looking for, right? Like reading materials, punctuation, past tense. You've seen what I've searched. And then we have a lot of different subject areas. And then you can look at the the education level and of the students you're teaching. And then if you're teaching some sort of Common Core or to a certain standard, you can also find matches to free resources right here. And so, for example, if I look up ESL reading and I search, okay, I'm going to come up, I'll see a lot of different options here. Now, each one should be looked at very carefully, okay, for accessibility. And if it's not accessible, then modify it so that it is, and maybe appropriateness for your class, World Cultures reading packet. I thought that would be great. I looked at it, and it's really for younger people, not adult education, but it might be good for a younger group of students. And then we have different readings. If you click on it, reading 1 to 3, it'll give me information. So it gives you a description, and then it also gives you what kind of license it's been submitted under. And this is going to tell you how you can use it. So if I click on this, it says you are free to share, copy, redistribute the material in any medium. You can adapt it, remix it, transform it, build on the materials for any purpose, or even use it commercially. Okay, so that would be a great resource to use, because you can use it and you can change it. You can post it without feeling like you're ripping someone off. Of course, it's always, you should mention, the person's name, or like the author, Kelly, this person would like, it would be nice if you mention their name, right? Giving credit where credit is due is always nice. But that's how, if I want to actually take a look at the resource, I'll view the resource, and then click on it and see what it is really, right? And this is going to be enrichment activities. Okay, so this wouldn't be for my students, but it might be for younger ESL students, right? So a couple, let me see in chat. I know that there's some maybe, okay.
Yeah, Katrina, we were just
chit-chatting.
chit-chatting about accessing the Google Slides. And
Okay,
so
all right.
I just changed the access. So now everyone can access our slides.
Okay, so and here's a few that I pulled out, like people and places. If you click this and you look at it, there's a Creative Commons attribution, non-commercial share alike license. And this means that you can remix it, transform it, distribute it, post it, but you can't sell it, right? You can't use it. You can't make money off their work. And so if you view this resource, you'll actually see it's like a website, and it tells you it's for language skills at the intermediate level, and they have several chapters that you can look through of materials that ESL teachers have spent time putting together. They really thought about it, and then they shared it with everyone else, right? And then so you can take this and make it right for your students. There's reading 4 through 5, short informational texts, so different types of reading materials. The other one you saw was short little sentences for maybe beginning, younger students or beginning students. And then here we have a whole short informational passage about Sally Ride. Okay, and then it comes with teaching tips and scaffolding, and it's completely free to you and to your students. And then there's also an OER. There's this one that has another teacher in my department used, and she said our students just really loved it and connected with it. It was too advanced for my students, but she felt it was really great. So it's John Lewis's Walking with the Wind, and it has all chapters and reading activities and reading guides to go along with it. And it's absolutely free. And you don't have to pay for it. Your students don't have to pay for it. And they have access to a really interesting book. Does anybody have questions about the OER that I can answer? No?
I do.
Okay.
I notice it under the education level, it has adult school and community college.
Yes.
Under the subject, there's English language arts and education. How is it best to get to ESL material? I noticed.
I would say, honestly, what I do is I just put the subject I'm looking for, or just a short description, ESL reading, and then I look through all of these, and then you can get down to, you can restrict, you can make, you can limit your search, but of course, limiting your search limits your results, and then your so my style is to go through the whole big pool. Or you can start small and then go big and take away the restrictions for your search. But I find like how people contribute, they might not necessarily think it would be for my students, but then I see that and I do think it would be accessible to my students and useful to my students. So you can look at under different subjects, you can look under different education levels, because they do vary from state to state, from country to country. What we would categorize things is different, or how we would does vary. Okay. Any other question?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so another resource being, having been thrown into the online environment and then going, oh no, where's our readers? And this is something that we do also on campus. I would use resources from the ESL library. Does anybody know ESL library? No ESL library? Yes, some people do. Okay, so a lot of people do. Ryan, you know it. Okay, and this can be very useful. It is fee-based for teachers. Teachers have to pay a subscription, but it is free for the students in your class. They don't have to pay anything. And what I really like about it is it has online activities, and it has like online modules they can work through, as well as PDFs you can email. So you can't post their PDFs in your Canvas course, but you can attach it to an email and send it in. The only thing is, of course, accessibility. So that really having the original document, having that PDF is a good idea. It's good to send that out to students, even if you just have them working online, because then they can put their PDF through whatever device they're using to access materials. And they can enlarge, print, and all of that. Online, they can do that too. And you can create classes and track participation. And there's a variety of reading materials with vocabulary and discussion questions. And it includes a diverse group of topics, and they're current as well. So I wanted to show you that. If you go to ESL library and you log in as a teacher, you can create a class, and you can create accounts for each student, so they all have access to the same thing. But if you look down here, the kinds of resources they have, reading and discovery, we have famous people, famous places, famous things, historic events. And so if we look at famous people, you're going to find a lot of different, a variety of different people from a variety of countries who are acknowledged for a variety of things. And it is very interesting that, for example, Pablo Picasso, we can look at the PDF or the task player, and it comes with audio. And so this is a beginning level worksheet, right, where it has questions, warming the student up, calling from their past experiences or knowledge. Who is this person? What country is he from? Why is he famous? And then some important vocabulary and definitions. And then it has the short reading. And then it asks the student to read about Pablo Picasso, but then to talk about themselves, where they were born, and what do they like to do, or what did they like to do as a child. So it's drawing from one person, right? the famous person, and then asking students to reflect and then talk about themselves. And so this is very helpful, I think, when you're looking for a variety of materials. Let me show you also an example of how they're kind of up to date. Like recently, and just recently we had the Dr. Seuss was in the news, right? And they are updating this reading right here to include that he may have had racist imagery in some of his books, and to talk about that. So as new things come up, they don't want to just leave the old status quo. They are updating their materials to reflect the current events and topics. And let's see. Historical events, they're not limited to just, you know, American history, or, you know, like things that just happened, or things that are only positive about the United States or something. They are talking about serious issues, and more accurately reflect history than a lot of our current textbooks. So do you have any questions? No? Do you have any suggestions for us at other ones? Nothing? All right, so I'm gonna stop my share there. Okay.
Hey, Katrina, the one
Yes.
thing I would add is, you know, a lot of traditional publishers don't address kind of the more sensitive topics like same-sex marriage, racially charged issues. And I noticed in that list that the ESL library did have topics,
Yeah.
and they called it milestones and movements. So I appreciate as a online publisher that they are posting like all types of readings on the continuum, and not just kind of a narrow width of topics that are like safe, you know. So that's new, because I don't remember that the last time
Well,
I looked at.
there's a lot. Go in there and type in equality, or
Yeah.
type in gender issues. You're going to find a lot of topics where students really don't have the vocabulary to talk about these things, and they do want to be able to talk to people about things and read up on it. They hear about it in the news, but it's not modified for them so that they can get the vocabulary and then express themselves in a conversation about it. So I think that these that kind of thing is, or those materials are very helpful and relevant to our current education goals.
And you also pointed out that in the case of Dr. Seuss, there's been a pretty recent discussion about some of his materials being racist, and so that's one of the powers of these online materials, is that when you're publishing online, you can add that comment about Geisel and his materials had some racial connotations that, you know, so it's when you offer materials fully online, you can make those adjustments pretty quickly. Whereas if you're publishing in print, you can't do that. So that's pretty cool. The ESL library is doing that.
Yeah. That it was nice to be able to just kind of any topic you would like to discuss, or that's going on in the news, or might be relevant to students, and they might have something to say about it. They just don't have the words to say it. So.
I don't know how many more slides you have, but
That's it from, there was just one more site that actually Ryan showed me this morning.
Okay.
And that was the National Geographic education, nationalgeographic.org. And they have lots of different resources that are multi-level, and they have audio with them, and they're really well-developed resources. Again, all of these websites and everything were really behind on accessibility, right? But they are it is available. The nationalgeographic.org has a lot of resources that we can use. That's not fee-based, and it's open to everyone.
It might be .com, just so you know.
Yeah, it's .org. If you go to
it is .org.
Yeah, if you go to .com, then you're going to find fee-based stuff. If you go to .org, here,
good to know, because this is .com. So you're saying that's fee-based.
Yeah.
And then if I switch it to .org.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an important distinction.
Okay, so this is .org, and then you can look through an education. Yeah. Oh, and Ryan just posted the link in chat right now, so you can click on that. It has a lot of great resources, dictionaries, reading materials, audio, visual.
So would I type in ESL, like, okay.
Well, I think you would just pick a level. So beginning, or, kind of look through it and see, because a lot of times, like I said, a lot of materials aren't made specifically for ESL students. So we have to go in, we have to kind of search through it all and pick the level that most closely matches to our student group. And it really doesn't match up to high, low, beginning. It's like you have to kind of meet with your students, get to know what they know, or what they need.
Right. So the ESL library site is specific to ESL, but nationalgeographic.org, we would need to probably adapt, but the materials are beautiful. Yeah. And Ryan, did you want to add anything? I think you're still with us. Yeah, Ryan's with us. Do you want to unmute? Hi, Ryan.
I think I don't really have too much to add. You go education, classroom resources, click on the classroom resources, and then here you could go ESL in any subject. There is ESL, but if you were to put in like the garbage patch, I've used that one. You'll notice a lot of the different resources are for grades, and the grades are from kindergarten through like 8th. So if you're teaching a beginning level class and you're looking for resources for like first grade, second grade, you'll find PowerPoints, and it's really kind of lower level with a lot of great visuals, and you can adapt those things. This one's difficult, grades 6 to 8, but if you find one that's a lower level than that, they're pretty easy to adapt, even just use. So for, I guess, equity reading resources where you want to have possibly different versions of the same material, this is an area where you can find the same article. Like, go ahead and click on the garbage patch one at the top there.
Okay.
And then if you, when you're on this one, now scroll down a little bit. Down, and then see how it says select level, text level. So there's the 4th grade.
Okay.
And then if you have, if you're teaching a multi-level class, you could get the other one, like the 7th grade. And a lot of the resources on this site are like that.
Okay.
And then if I didn't know how I could use it, so I went over to the terms of use. And if you're an educator, you can use them. You can't like make a bunch of copies, and there are some restrictions, but it's just another resource.
Yeah, these images are
Totally cool.
totally cool.
Mhm.
And instead of us spending time finding these images, they're right here. They've already curated them for us.
And some of them are posted by Noah, and they are Creative Commons.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I mean, that's really tells you a lot about the impact of trash on the sea animals. Yeah.
When I use this site, I actually rewrote, or I wrote a script, and then I made a video with images that I could use, and I
Okay.
used that in my class.
Very
But
good.
I like this site, and I want to look at it more, and I want to look at it for lower level material, because if you go back to just the education, I mean, there's so many great sites, but I'd like to look at the resources they have for, say, first graders or second graders, and see if that can be easily adapted for beginning level
I
classes,
see. So where it
because they're all
says for all
Mhm.
grades, you would maybe say, I don't know, let's start with
Second.
second. Let's just go to second grade.
Yeah,
And then we click on done.
done.
And then we go to search. And so we know that, oh yeah, look, grades 2 through 8, you could talk about.
And then see where it says content type.
Mhm,
Some of these, like lesson
down
or
here. Oh
uh-huh,
yeah, so click on lesson.
and you can find PowerPoints, and
Mhm.
could be fun to look at.
I think that's great. I think there's a lot of vocabulary too. That's
Oh.
what I'm always thinking of when I pick reading materials is what vocabulary, right? What do they want to talk about? What do they want to say? What's relevant, and picking out the important words and focusing on them, and making activities where they can use them, right? So you have this imagery and that reading, and then you can pick out what's most relevant to your students, what they want to learn, point out the grammar points or the grammar structures you're focusing on in the text.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yep.
great. All right. Well, we just reviewed textbooks for young readers, or what they call new reader editions. Those are worth exploring. That new reader edition, it's brand new. It just started showing up in Amazon in the last 6 months or so. So definitely check those out. And then Katrina, thanks again. You showed us the OER Commons. There's so much on there. That's been around a while, it wasn't just because of the pandemic. OER Commons has been there for like 5 years or more.
Yeah.
And then the national,
Typically we would have resources or copies we could hand to our students, but that was cut off, right? So I think a lot of
Right.
people were looking for that, especially since like in my at the community college, and being a non-credit class, I teach non-credit. We're not allowed to ask students to buy anything, not even
Right.
if it's 5 cents. We don't ask them to pay for anything. So we can't have them go to the website and buy a book or anything. So that's why I think resources like the OER, and then also having like a fee-based subscription that, and actually your school might actually reimburse you for that or sign you up for the subscription.
Or yeah, because we
Yeah.
have some program-wide subscriptions for ESL faculty. So
Yeah.
sometimes a school or a district will do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hey, we're approaching the 1:30 hour. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm just so curious. What do you guys think? Which one of these resources do you think you're going to use?
Oh, I like both.
You like it all,
Yeah.
Kara. Okay, Jennifer, how about you?
I just have a new student that this past week, and he is a 6th grader, ELL, and I've been working with him, and he hates to read. He just told me. I said, "What kind of books do you like to read?" He goes, "I don't read. I hate to read." So I was pondering, how do I and he had to pick a book for. I said, "Well, what are you doing for English?" He says, "I have to pick a book." So I was trying to rack my brain to think about this. So this is something I can really, I'm already thinking of titles that I can give to him as resources. Maybe he will like one of these the new reader editions. Yeah, and I can use those for him and just make a list and help him pick a book. And because I think that would be just about right for him. Yeah. So I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right.
So when is our next meeting is when, and what is it going to be about?
April, I think it's April 9th. Is our next, did I get that date right? It's in our slides. There we go. Yeah, April 9th. Bye-bye. So yeah, join us the second Friday of the month, April 9th, 12:30 to 1:30. Bring your lunch if you want to. We share resources, we check in and help each other out with this online world that we're living in. And thanks everyone so much for joining us. Thank you, Ryan, for giving us a hot tip on nationalgeographic.org. That
Thank
was
you,
new
guys.
for me. I hadn't heard of it.
Thank you, guys.
So thanks so much.
I would also say come with questions or with comments, because we're here to just like talk with you guys and work and think it out, right? So if there's something that's going on in your online classroom, just please bring it up, because we might not have the exact answer, but we have